Bellona Cicero, 21. I appreciate all of you meeting. I'd like to say that we have initially we've had some slight misunderstandings on timing here. So when the original invitation said 6, this is 3 o'clock. All of you could come. We are live taping and streaming this event as well, putting it out there on later as an official copy on that. And hopefully the reach will be even larger than this room. It's my pleasure to introduce a variety of visionaries this evening. It is great for all of you to acknowledge that within the realm of climate mitigation, climate change, and energy questions, one of the most interesting items of all this is disruptiveness and how simple technologies can revolutionize and change the entire world. Realizing clean disruption of energy and transportation was the theme for this event of today. I'm very pleased to have Mr. Thomas author of Electrification at Stanford with us today. He will be the keynote speaker and round off this event. Firstly, I'm going to also introduce Fredrik Hagen, President, founder of Bellona Foundation, an environmental NGO, and gives his take and our take on disruptive technologies and what the potential is. And also I have Daniel Schemmel, CEO, who's going to give his take, a little inspiration take on what's the potential of disruptive technologies and electrification and the options and opportunities that arise within that particular sector. So first, Mr. Fredrik Hagen and Mr. Daniel Schemmel. So, yes.
Thank you, Alpha. This is one of the topics that make me optimistic. With all negative news on global warming and climate change, we should remember what kind of enormous technological development it has been since we negotiated the climate agreement in Copenhagen 6 years ago. So this is maybe one of the most important that we ever going to discuss.
I'm not sure if
you are. Okay. Thank you. So, with the price reduction we have had on solar and other renewables, it's more and more important to find ways to balance unregulated power. And we have some limited but interesting possibilities. Hydro has been discussed, especially a lot in Norway, because we have a lot of hydropower, battery, electromobility. As an example, what Nissan is doing with the vehicle-to-grid technology now. For example, when the tsunami happened, they operated their factories by letting the workers charge the car at home and come to the factory and release the electricity into the factory. That's why Nissan is one of the first companies that were able to operate again after the tsunami. Electromobility is getting us a lot of batteries in the future. Air, compressed air, is also on the table. In Ontario, they are now testing out air compression in underwater balloons to use the electricity from wind farms when it's not paid for. Flywheels is several projects going on, especially in Scotland. And hydrogen has also been quite interesting development in the last years. And of course, bio is another way to balance energy. That's why we are working also with the project Sahara First project to be able to produce bio from seawater in the desert, and also the Ocean First project that we're doing to produce seaweed also. But maybe one of the most interesting things is the price reduction of solar and batteries. And what are we all here for in Paris? That is to discuss how we can get some kind of price on CO2. And that maybe will be the most disruptive effect of them all. It will one day sooner or later solar and battery will be cheaper, and cheap enough will then break the monopolistic structure in the energy sector. And this will create a lot of consequences in the basic structures in the energy market, and will influence the goods and services and the global distribution of value creation on a global scale. And this will also result in a democratization of energy with huge political and economic dimensions with an enormous disruptive effect. I think it's right to say that we are well on the way on this track, and it's maybe more large-scale deployment that will bring down the prices. We need to industrialize the environmental solutions. In Bellona, we have been working a lot with carbon capture and storage as one of the alternatives also to regulate unregulated power production. And we see that the market in Europe is it will be around 2 to 3, 4 billion, a trillion euros more expensive, according to the Commission, to solve the and reach the climate targets within the European Union without carbon capture and storage. It illustrates very well, for example, the same market for batteries and other storage. So this is a question about scaling up. For me, we have been working with electromobility since 1988 in the Bellona Foundation, where we imported the first car. What happened with the price when you have solar written off, solar plants written off after 10, 15 years, but the solar panels can work for many, many years more. And what happens when the car batteries has been used in the car for a while, and things probably is that car batteries last much longer than we expected, so we don't get to use written off batteries. But this will influence how we supply the transmission and the distribution of energy. The energy storage affects both sides of the market, from energy demand to energy supply. A system scale energy storage and aggregated distributed energy storage can provide the system a valuable positive and negative flexibility, increasing utilization of the renewable energy sources while reducing the need for thermal power plants. Energy storage, like the lithium ion, can dispatch energy to the grid rapidly, extremely valuable in the future with increased price volatility within day trading. What we see now is that the car industry is bringing up the numbers of produced batteries and reducing the price. I think it's right to say that the battery price has been reduced to half the last 5 years. And I expect it to be reduced to the half of that again within a very short time, a year or two. For us, working in the Arctic, working with the environment, this is a very important topic. We try to establish business-to-business models, new markets, and we take care of early movers and risk takers into this. We have in Norway now close to 25% of the new car sales is electric, and we're very proud of that. The next will be the maritime sector. That's why we're very happy to have Ram and forward to here. We're going to explore the possibilities to also do the EV revolution at sea. So I'm very much looking forward to discuss this, and this will be a main topic for Bellona the coming years to work with and understand. We are working in Norway, which is a nice little Catholic country, but we should be very, very careful in investing, in my opinion, in long-term infrastructure without taking this into consideration. That could be a big economic mistake. And we need to understand how this will affect the energy market and the whole value creation of goods, products, and yeah, there will be other people who will be poor and other people who will earn money with this system, and we need to understand this. So I'm also very happy and looking forward to listen to you, Tommy. It's pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much, Philippe. The next speaker, introducing a few visionary views from the industry side, is going to be Mr. Daniel Schaller. He's the Group CEO of Hurtigruten. We invited him here to talk about how he foresees and how he views the opportunities and possibilities within his business, because, as Philippe said, this is going to be important in all aspects of transport. And I'd really like to
Thank you. So Hurtigruten is the largest operator in tourism within the Arctic area, and next year will be the largest operator in Antarctica tourism. We operate 14 small cruise ships that explore ships up to 650 beds. And we have 3 hotels in Svalbard, we have 200 snowmobiles in Svalbard, we have 200 sledge dogs in Svalbard, and a quite large operation up there. So on this exact day, 4th of December, 104 years ago, Roald Amundsen reached the South Pole. And the race and fight against the British Marine officer Robert Scott was at the time viewed as the most spectacular race in the polar history. The prestige of being the first to reach the South Pole was huge. And as we all know, Amundsen reached it first and got himself in the history books. Today we see a totally different race going on. This time around, it's not about who's the first to reach the South Pole or any other destination. It's about saving the Earth from a climate breakdown. And let's make no mistake, this time has come to create and use climate-effective initiatives, not because it's a nice thing to do, but for us as a commercial operator, it's because it's a must-do for every company in every sector. And for the shipping industry, for the cruise industry, in order to achieve 2-degree target or the 1.5-degree target, shipping emission can peak in 2020, but then has to start to decline drastically over the next period of time. This is only possible if international shipping is included in the climate deal. Together with aviation, we represent 8% of global emissions, and we think the time has come to provide stronger regulations. We aim to be a key player in this inevitable energy revolution in the shipping and cruise industry. To believe that the transformation that have happened in the car industry with the hybrid cars, with the electrical cars, and most recently now to the ferries on short sailings, not will occur on larger passenger ships operating on longer distances is for us an unthinkable mindset to have. We know that it's only a question of time until we see the technology ready to take shipping's emissions and energy use to a completely different level than we have seen up to now. Our dream is to be the first expedition cruise company to travel fossil-free, and I envision Hurtigruten vessels sailing silently and emission-free in the pristine waters of Antarctica and up to the ice front towards the North Pole. However, this dream will not be realized unless politicians and industries create the right incentives and solutions. If we really want to make this green transition happen, it's time for everyone to step up. Hurtigruten has sailed in the polar region for more than 120 years. Long before the polar ice started to melt, and long before the ecosystems in the Arctic and Antarctica started to act this fragile, we experienced the climate change daily in our operation through increasingly worse weather conditions, and our guests also are able to recognize the glaciers melt. As you can see, we operate in some of the most pristine and vulnerable areas in the world. We're in 24/7 operation up and down the Norwegian coast, as you see up here. And we have explorer ships that sail in areas such as Antarctica, Greenland, Svalbard, Iceland, and so on. In common for all these destinations is the clear negative influence of global climate change. Few companies, if not any, experience climate change as a closer angle than us on an everyday basis. This gives us a unique insight, and not least gives us opportunities to make a significant impact in this, especially in gathering extensive and valuable data for research institutions that we do work closely with, but also in showing our guests these waters, show them the changes that are going on, and not the least educating our guests about it. We recognize and understand that the shipping and cruise industry is responsible for major CO2 emissions. However, our main focus will always be to become a part of the solution and not the problem. In Hurtigruten, we have made some fundamental decisions regarding our operations. Despite the financial disadvantages it brings us, none of our vessels use heavy fuel oil, and that with a very good reason. This is a major cost for us, but we don't see any other options with respect to the environment we sail in. Unfortunately, we see that in the cruise industry, this is not a given at all. We see our competitors use heavy fuel despite the negative impact it brings and the potential disaster it could lead to if anything should go wrong or would go wrong in the Arctic. I think it's a tragedy that we're able to use or to operate 5,000 bed cruise ships loaded with heavy fuel oil into the pristine waters around Svalbard. It should not be that way. For what would happen if a big cruise ship on heavy fuel ran aground on Svalbard? It would not only be a huge catastrophe to the local environment short term, but also likely leave a huge negative footprint for many years to come. This is honestly a matter that needs to be addressed immediately and not be a decision made reactively upon an incident that has happened. In Antarctica, it's already happened. It's a ban on heavy fuel. This should also be that around Svalbard and in the Nordic region. Today, our guests see the polar areas in big change. They see the ice melting and the challenges faced for local communities and ecosystems. We have a very distinct way of treating our guests. We're not satisfied to only show the beautiful yet increasingly fragile scenery we see. Our mission is to increase the knowledge and awareness to our guests and make sure that they understand the challenges these areas face today, will be face in the future. Instead of only giving our guests one last look at the Arctic ice or the polar bears, our main focus is to change their mindsets and make them conscious of how they can contribute to sustaining these areas together with us. To do this, we operate all over sailing with expedition teams. These expedition teams would be lecturers, scientists, explorers that give lectures to our guests. One important piece also in this mission will be our recently established Hurtigruten Foundation that will work closely on these areas and support grassroots environmental initiatives. The green technological shift doesn't come by itself. It only occurs when new technology, politics, and market forces work together. And here in Paris, the world's leading politicians are gathered to set targets for the climate work ahead. I'm here because I represent the industry and because I'm ready to make a difference for the industry. The market forces are extremely powerful, and I believe these forces are necessary to activate in order to utilize and implement new technology fast. We can only use new technology when it's available, operationally reliable, and profitable in a long-term perspective. Because with our history in mind, we want to be as influential in the next 100 years as Amundsen was a little bit more than 100 years ago. Today, the technology doesn't exist for us to go from fuel to zero emission. Nothing would be more exciting to be here in a few years' time to explain how we use electrical solutions when we operate in Antarctica and in Arctic waters. But we need help to make this scenario possible. First, we need to create a political framework that enables and creates the initiatives and incentives to create these solutions. And second, we need the industry to step up the game and provide us with these solutions. When this happens, we are extremely eager and ready to use this in our operation. Of course, we won't sit idle and wait for the technology to come. One of the most interesting things ahead of us is using electric shore covers in bigger ports. And this is a scenario we work thoroughly with Bellona over the next coming month. The challenge here is not that the technology is not here, but it's the standardization and it's the political will to implement it in the different ports that we go to. We also urge the politicians to make it illegal for companies to use heavy fuel oil and to extend the sulfur directive that's implemented drastically. Today, only half of the pristine Norwegian coasts is under this directive. Only a small portion of Svalbard is under this directive. The same goes for North America. Here we should set new standards and help greener technology push through the financial benefits of operating with heavy fuel. For Hurtigruten, it's $15 to $20 million annually that goes into increased costs of not operating with heavy fuel. It's also essential that shipping and aviation industry is included in the climate team. Global policies and initiatives implemented for electric cars, seen in many markets, have shown how fast you can actually get greener transition by having political regulations in force and gives the market opportunities to renew. This is the way to go in shipping and cruise industry as well. I'm no politician, I'm a very competitive businessman. Norwegian came first to the different poles and allowed us to be the first company to use new technology in the polar areas without any environmental damage. Also, me and Fredrik in Bellona shares the same vision on the potential of Svalbard as an Arctic showcase of renewable energy. That would be fantastic to have in a few years' time. I'm here in Paris because it's eventually us, the industry, who is going to use the new technology that leads us not only to a low carbon industry, but to a carbon negative industry. And I have no doubt that we will get to this point, but only a very collaborative effort will lead us to this transition. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Before we move on to our main speaker, Mr. Thomas, I just want to have a quick Mr. Samuel Roth. He's CTO of ESB Cars in Ireland. One of the great things about the EV revolution and why we as an environmental NGO saw this as a great opportunity was basically that not only could that revolutionize emission issues from cars or from transport as such, it also opens up the opportunity for better implementation and large opportunities for renewable energies into the system. So without further ado, I'd just like to have a quick input from one of the people who's actually in that business today. So Mr. Roth, thank you very much for your views on this.
Thanks very much. Just for your information, I am, as has been said, the CTO for ESB Cars, which is a division of the utility in Ireland. We were charged in 2008 by the then Irish government to provide a national charging, electric vehicle charging infrastructure. So now in Ireland, there is at least one double-headed 22 kilowatt charge point in every town with a population of 1,500 people. And on all the interurban routes, motorway and all, there is at least 150 kilowatt DC fast charger, and usually a 43 kilowatt AC charger as well, every 50 or 60 kilometers. So that exists. I also, 2 years ago, I was appointed by Euroelectric Association Utilities to chair its working group on electromobility. But I am here today to talk about just about the situation in Ireland, not the overall European situation, and just to give you a brief view of it. Because I think the key thing about the electricity system in Ireland, and it is of a lot of interest to utilities in Europe and is a lot of interest to utilities in the United States, is that because we are an island of reasonable size, not too big, not too small, but we're big enough to be noticeable. And yet, with limited interconnection, we are a microcosm of what's going to happen with electricity utilities, probably worldwide. What I mean by that is that today in Ireland, and I won't bore you with a whole lot of figures, but I'll throw a couple of meaningful figures at you. The first figure is that the peak demand in Ireland is about 5,000 megawatts. The summer valley is about 1,600 megawatts. So the demand for electricity fluctuates between those two figures. Already today, there is 2,300 megawatts of wind on the Irish electricity system. Of course, it doesn't blow all the time, but we have a higher load factor than anywhere else in Europe, because any of you who have ever been to Ireland know that we don't specialize in heat or cold, but we do specialize in wind and rain. If you want that, we've got plenty of it. By 2020, with the legal agreements that are in place, now we're not depending on anybody coming up with ideas. We're just talking about the people who have a legal contract already to do it. We will have 4,000 megawatts of wind on our system. In 2010, on the Easter Monday of 2010, which was a bank holiday, that was the first day that we had to tell the wind generators to curtail their generation. Even though the wind was blowing, it was a day of low demand. At that stage, we only had 1,100 megawatts of wind on the system. Our grid operator takes the view, and the way he puts it up is that our colleagues in Denmark often talk about that the issues they have with wind. He says they don't have issues in Denmark. They merely have some they don't have problems, sorry. They merely have some commercial issues, because Denmark has the capability of spilling all its surplus, admittedly at negative prices, into either Sweden or Germany. We don't have that option. And even if we had a lot more interconnection with the UK, when the wind blows in Ireland, it also blows in the UK. So when we have surplus, they actually don't need it. So that is a problem for us. Now, if we have, at the moment, when we have about 20% of our annual electricity coming from wind, the most, if you're running a power system, what you have to translate that into is how much can you actually handle instantaneously? And actually, we can handle 50%. And the grid operator says if we generate more than 50% from renewable asynchronous sources, we can't guarantee the stability of the system. Now, the major issue, and this is why a lot of people are interested in what we're doing, through a whole variety of techniques, we have got to get the instantaneous amount of electricity up to 75%. If we're not able to deal with 75% of the electricity instantaneously being from asynchronous sources, we won't hit our target of 40% annually. We will have to curtail off. Now, one of the techniques that there's a whole variety, faster ramping of existing power stations, renewable, neutral, and storage. We see electric vehicles as a key component in being able to help us do that. And that was the justification. And in fact, the reason that in Ireland, and we're very similar to the United States rather than to the rest of Europe, in that the promotion and the desire for electric vehicles and the responsibility for it is not coming from our Ministry for Transport. They have the responsibility to implement the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Directive, but they are not responsible for electric vehicles. It's our ministry, our Department for Energy. So that is similar to the situation. So now the reason that is that where we're at, with where we'll be in 2020, 40% of our energy coming from asynchronous sources is somewhere the UK is likely to be in 2030 to 2035, and where Europe will be with its plan for full decarbonisation by 2050. At least we'll have to have that. So what's going on and our reason for looking at storage, we would do a lot of storage now if it were economically viable for us to do it. And the idea of electric cars parked for over 90% of their life, nobody who wants to drive an electric car particularly cares when the energy goes into the battery, as long as it's full when they want to charge. That's so that's just a sort of a short picture of our situation. Why we're particularly interested in we're interested in renewable energy, and we see electric vehicles as being a match. I just made one in case anybody is interested. We've had a recession. Up until the middle of last year, we had more charge points than we have electric cars. So they have been slow to arrive. But we doubled the number of electric cars on the road last year, and already advanced sales for next year are running at double what they were last year. So we think it's not going to be an overnight success in the sense of getting to huge numbers very quickly. We think it's going to be steady progress, but it's all heading in the right direction. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much to Mr. Sanna McGrath. Now it's my great pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker and the main speaker for this event. A while back, Fredrik Hage, who's the president of the organization, sent out a link to a YouTube video and enthusiastically pronounced to the entire organization, you have to see this. This is really good. We have to work with this. We need to meet this guy. And that was the video of Mr. Tony Siba talking about clean disruption of energy and transportation. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce him to the stage tonight. He's come all the way from the US, but without much further ado, please, Mr. Siba.
Thank you.
Short introduction for our bigger.
Oh, are we here?
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. Okay.
All right. Thank you for that introduction. Thank you for having me here, Bellona, at COP21 in Paris. I want to take you a little bit into the future of energy and transportation. That's what I do. I talk about, and my work is disruption and how to find that in the future. But before I do that, I want to take you into the past a little bit. Has anyone been to New York lately? New York City? Awesome. Thank you. You've been to Fifth Avenue, New York. This is, can you see this picture clearly? Can anyone, this is 1900 New York City, Fifth Avenue. Can anyone see the one car in this picture? The one car in this picture? No? Okay. There. There's one car in 1900 New York City. And it doesn't even look like a car. 13 years later, same place, Fifth Avenue, New York. Can anyone see the horse? There is one horse in this picture. So this is 13 years. In 13 years, New York went from all horse to all cars. 13 years, that's all it took. That is what's called a technology disruption. At the time, the technology was the internal combustion engine automobile. But as you saw, it happened very quickly. It took a while to gather steam, no pun intended, but when it reached a critical point, basically the disruption happened very quickly. So let me define a disruption. A disruption happens when there's a set of technologies and business models that allow for the creation of products and services that do two things. One is they create new markets, and two, they either destroy totally or radically transform existing industries. So what digital cameras did to film cameras, that's a total disruption and destruction of the existing market. What Uber is doing to taxis is also a disruption, but they're not destroying that market, they're radically transforming that market. But those are two types of disruption. Now, from 1900, let me take you to 1985. In 85, and I just want to show you what experts and smart people, how they see the future. In 85, the then largest telecom company on earth, AT&T, hired McKinsey, and they asked them one question. Give me a 15-year forecast of cell phone adoption. So in the year 2000, how many cell phones will there be? I mean, what's the market for cell phones in the United States of America? So McKinsey went off and they did whatever it is that they do. They came back and their prediction was 900,000. They thought that in 15 years there would be 900,000 cell phones. Now, when you see IEA predictions for the future of solar, take this into account. The actual number was 109 million. This was not off by a few percentage points. They were off by 120 times. 120 times. And because AT&T thought it was going to be 900,000, they didn't get into the market right away. And they missed out. They got disrupted. Landline telephony got disrupted. But they also missed out on huge multi-trillion-dollar opportunities. And what you see on the right is the market valuation of the top 15 mobile internet companies in the world. Apple and Google and so on and so forth. That's $2.4 trillion. And that is something that AT&T missed out on because they did not anticipate a disruption. And usually it's the experts and the insiders who will dismiss disruption opportunities. They're the ones who are going to say, nah, it's not going to happen. Or it's not going to happen. It could not possibly happen that quickly. And so on and so forth. And they can give you all kinds of excuses. And these are the experts and the smart people. Okay? So part of my work is to answer this question. Why do smart people and smart organizations fail to anticipate, let alone lead, market disruptions? And also I've been thinking over the last few years in my work about why hasn't the conception of disruption that we have anticipated some of the recent disruptions like Uber and like the smartphone disruption and so on and so forth. So I went back to the drawing board and I created a new framework for disruptions that has the ability to predict technology-based market disruptions. And it's not usually just one thing, it's not just the technology, although the technology does make a huge difference. It's also things like business model innovation. So I'm going to walk you through some examples, but one of the important components of this is what's called exponential technologies. And I'll explain what that is. We all know about Moore's Law. Moore's Law essentially says that computing on a per the same dollar basis has improved by about computing technology by about 41% per year, every single year for decades. And when you get 41% improvement in technology for the same dollar, over 10 years, that's a 1,000 time improvement. Over 20 years, that's a 1 million time improvement. Over 30 years, that's a 1 billion time improvement. So, basically we stop paying attention for a few months and we get disrupted. And that's what exponential technologies can do. We humans don't think exponentially, we think linearly. We think about this quarter, next year, and so on. And we even base our predictions on incremental changes, even the optimists, on what we have today, not on exponential thinking. Now, 20 years ago or so, I was an early employee at a little company called Cisco Systems. And we were looking at, it was little at the time, but things like network capacity was improving at about 50% every 9 months. Every 9 months. And if you do that exponential growth, that exponential improvement, you can see that there were going to be a lot of disruptions happening, even though, as we saw in the example of AT&T, the industry could not anticipate. They were not thinking this way exponentially. And usually disruptions are not just the cause of one technology, it's the convergence of several technologies. So the personal computer, the cell phone, the smartphone, the internet, they're the result of the convergence of several exponential technologies: data storage, digital imaging, network capacity, and so on and so forth. So this kind of thinking can help anticipate and explain many disruptions. And today, I'm looking at about a dozen technologies that are improving exponentially. And it's the convergence of many of these technologies that can help create disruptions in all kinds of industries and whether it's energy or transportation or healthcare, essentially everything as we see today will be disrupted by a set of technologies. And this is not a complete list, but this is a list that I found in my work. So when we take a few of these technologies, so let me give you an example in case you haven't been paying attention to sensors. Since 2007, over the following 7 years, sensors went down in cost by 1,000 times. In 7 years, by 1,000 times, right? At the same time, the market has gone up by 1,000 times, from 10 million to 10 billion per year. So if we keep those two curves, the exponential technology curve and the market curve, essentially we're looking at 10 trillion sensors per year around 2022 or 2025. Trillion. Now do the numbers. We have 7 billion people, 10 trillion sensors. That's about 1,300 sensors per year per person. What on earth are we going to do with that? So those are the kinds of things that I think about in my work. Now, when you bring that framework into energy and transportation, this is what we're going to get. And these are the four main elements that are going to disrupt the whole of energy and transportation as we know it today. And I'll talk about each one of them as quickly as I possibly can. So energy storage. There are all types of energy storage technologies, but I'll focus on lithium-ion. So lithium-ion batteries, since the mid-90s and for the following 15 years, improved their costs by about 14% per year. So that's the technology cost curve, 14% per year. And that's when only one industry, computing, essentially used lithium-ion batteries. Since about 2009, two new industries have invested in that space. And as a result, so automotive and energy, the cost curve has actually accelerated. So since 2010 to 2014, the cost of lithium-ion batteries went down by about 16% per year. So the more investments, the more R&D, the more the market demand, and so on, the more the costs go down. And this is not unusual. So if we take that 16% curve going forward, these are the numbers that we can look forward to. And this does not assume acceleration beyond the 16%, which will probably happen. And I'm pointing at three things here, because at each one of these points, basically energy storage at these costs will disrupt different industries. And how is the industry? So this is one example. You all know about Tesla's Gigafactory, which is a $5 billion battery factory in Nevada, in the US. And they expect to double world production in just this factory of lithium-ion batteries in this one place. And by doing this, they will reduce, they expect to reduce the cost by about 30, maybe 50%. How are they going to do this? Let me tell you quickly how the supply chain works. So you mine the lithium in Argentina or Chile or Australia. You ship that to China, where it's purified to about 99.9% purity. Then they ship it to Japan or Korea, where say Japan, Panasonic builds its little 18650 battery. They ship those to Fremont, California, where Tesla puts it together in the factory. There's a lot of waste in that supply chain. So by putting most of that supply chain in one place, you can cut a lot of the costs of lithium-ion batteries, and that's part of what Tesla's doing. And on top of that, they're also improving the technology. So the combination of technology improvement and cost improvement essentially means that the cost of lithium-ion batteries can go down substantially. And in my 16% cost curve calculation, I assume that we're going to have $200 per kilowatt hour by 2020. 2020. Now, Tesla this year announced batteries at 250 or 350, which when they ship, because they haven't, essentially they're going to be ahead of Micro. And just to give you an idea of the need for batteries at these costs, for anything from solar to wind and so on, they received about $1 billion in reservations, not orders because they weren't shipping yet, in the first couple of weeks, $1 billion. And they're not the only ones doing this. BYD said that they're building battery factories just almost as big as, theirs is bigger than yours in a factory. Foxconn, LG Chem, Samsung SDI, Nissan, they're all building really, or have built, really, really large factories. And what may end up happening in this case, and this is going to quadruple in total, the capacity for batteries, lithium-ion batteries, in the world. And what may end up happening here when we increase the R&D and investments and competition and so on is something like what happened in solar in China entered the market, which is increasing competition, costs go down, many investments go up, and R&D go up, and so on and so forth. So the 16% cost curve may in fact accelerate because of all these investments. Now, the other aspect that I talk about and that is important in disruption is the business model innovation. So we don't need to wait for technology for energy storage to be at 200 or 250 for storage to be disruptive to the existing utilities. So there are companies in Silicon Valley, such as Thermal Recharge Networks, that are packaging batteries, putting software and power electronics on top of that, and they're going to, for instance, 7-Elevens or a hotel. And what happens today is you go to a 7-Eleven, you open the fridge to get a drink or something, and there's a spike in that moment. And for that spike, 7-Eleven is going to pay a higher energy charge for the rest of that month. That's called a demand charge. By taking the storage inside, behind the meter, today, at today's prices, essentially these companies can hide those spikes and they can help save companies anywhere from 10 to 50% at today's energy prices, right? So this is very disruptive because it takes away some of the pricing power of utilities. And if you take this model to its logical conclusion, and you assume that by 2020, the cost of batteries is going to be at $200 per kilowatt hour, no matter what the technology is. Essentially, the average American household, which consumes about 30 kilowatt hours per day, will be able to store a full day of electricity for $1.20 a day. $1, and now nobody really, unless you want to get off the grid, needs to store a full day, but they'll be able to do it for $1 a day. $1 a day will keep the utility away, in other words, right? And this is only 5 years from now. This is only 5 years from now. We're not talking about 2100 here. This disruption is happening as we speak, and we're going to see it very, very soon. In fact, all you need, the household needs to disrupt pricing power is something like 4 to 6 hours of storage, not 24 hours of storage. Why? Because if you look at, for instance, Arizona Public Service, just to give you an example, they charge in peaker prices 49 cents in the summer. But that's between 3 and 6 p.m. But at midnight, they charge 5 cents. So if all you do is store 4 hours at 5 cents and you use it for its 49 cents, boom, you take away the pricing power from the utility. And essentially, 4 to 6 hours of storage in 2020 will cost $6 a month. $6 a month. That's 2 cafe lattes a month to disrupt utilities. The other way in which storage can disrupt utilities and also help is on a grid scale. So today, the grid is a just-in-time supply chain without inventory. And so the issue with that is that you have to balance demand and supply in real time. And that's an issue, that's a problem, right? What a lot of utilities do, and this is an example of Congress in New York, just to give you one example, is that you have what's called peakers. So in the summer, as it heats up and people turn on the air conditioners, essentially they switch on new power plants. And then demand goes up, and then they switch on a new power plant. And then demand goes up, and then they switch on another power plant. And what you get is that just about a third of this utility's generating assets are used less than 6% of the year. You have billions and billions of dollars in generating assets that are used 29 hours, 7 hours. Right? So when you have large grid scale storage, what it does is it disrupts all peakers. You will not need peakers when you have grid scale storage. And already CEOs of utilities of energy companies in the US are saying by around about 2020, they may never be another peaker built in the US market. And I think we can extend this to world markets. What they're not saying is that the existing peakers are going to be obsolete when this happens. And there's an energy company in Texas called Encore that has proposed a $5 billion energy storage project. $5 billion. And when you read the report, they say that they can make this work at $350 per kilowatt hour. So energy storage at $350, we're almost there. Essentially, will disrupt this peaking. So essentially, that's an introduction to how batteries can be disrupted in and of themselves. Now, the second disruption is that's part of what batteries can help is the electric vehicle disruption, or I should say the petroleum disruption. So, do I need to talk about Tesla? Best car ever made, according to Motor Trends. Best car. Consumer Reports gave them a rating of 103 out of 100. They took it back later, but you can't make this out. It sounds like a film, like a movie. 103, not 100. And that's because EVs are actually much superior cars to the internal combustion engine. And not just superior, they're disruptive. And I'll show you a few reasons why. But the question is, look, a Tesla, who can afford an electric vehicle, right? No, that's not my car. That's just a photo op, right? It looks good. But I actually don't own a car. I'll show you my car in a few slides. But let's answer the question: is the EV disruptive? When the electric vehicle reaches a certain price parity with the gasoline or diesel vehicle, will it disrupt? Right? Just like what digital cameras did to film cameras when they got to about the same price performance level. So let me give you a few reasons why. In the book, I write extensively about this, but let me give you a few reasons why EVs are disruptive. The electric drivetrain, the electric motor, is 5 times more energy efficient than the internal combustion engine. So internal combustion engine, ICE vehicles, only turn 17 to 21% of the energy in the gasoline into actual power, usable power. Some companies will cheat, and I will tell you who, to make us believe otherwise. But basically, this is the law of thermodynamics. I mean, basically, you can't push this out much further. The electric motor is 95% efficient. So it turns 95% of the energy in the battery into actual usable energy. So it's 5 times more energy efficient. Now that is not disruptive in and of itself, but when you combine that with the fact that electrons are cheaper to transport than atoms, meaning electricity is cheaper to transport than gasoline or diesel, then you get that EVs are about 10 times cheaper to charge on a per kilometer basis. It depends on the market, right? In the US, we have 3,000 electricity markets. So each market for electricity and gasoline and so on is a little bit different. But in the US, essentially, it's about 10x cheaper per mile. So 10x, every time you see a 10x in an important economic dimension, you have a potential disruption. The other way in which EVs are potentially disruptive is this. Your car, assuming you have a gasoline car, a petrol car, has 2,000 plus moving parts. 2,000 plus moving parts. This is a great business, right? Maintenance and operations and all that. The EV, the Tesla Model S, has 18 moving parts. 18. That's 1% of the moving parts of the internal combustion engine automobile, which means that this is as maintenance-free as you can possibly get. While it's not totally free, but it's 10 to 100 times cheaper to maintain than the internal combustion engine. So we have two dimensions in which EVs are at least 10 times cheaper to operate and maintain than the internal combustion engine. And the other thing is that this is something the industry hasn't made a big point about. EVs are far more powerful than ICE vehicles, far more. I mean, they're comparing the Tesla Model S with $1 million supercars from Lamborghini and Ferrari and Porsche and so on, right? So they're comparing the $100,000 EV with $1 million gasoline. I mean, you get a lot more performance. So what's going to end up happening is this. For 100 years, the car industry has said this. You want a high performance car, you pay the big price, right? You want the Porsche performance, you pay the Porsche prices. You want the medium performance, you pay the $40,000 price. You want the low performance, then you pay the low performance price. So it's been that arrow. What EVs are going to do is shift that arrow to the point where the ICE vehicle will not be able to compete under any circumstances. So we'll soon be able to get Porsche performance for Buick prices. So neither Porsche nor Buick will be able to compete in this case. Now, when is that going to happen? I'm going to show you. If you follow the lithium-ion curve, and batteries are the main cost element in EVs, as you saw, 18 moving parts and wheels and whatnot. The rest is not very expensive at all. So if you start at $75,000, which is the Tesla Model S in 2014, and you went down the curve, essentially the industry will be able to build $35,000 to $40,000 EVs by about 2018, 2017. That's only 2 years away. $35,000 to $40,000 EVs. And at that point, nothing above $40,000 will be able to compete. By around about 2020, the EV industry will be able to build a $30,000 EV. And by the way, I'm talking about 200 miles, 320 kilometers, which I consider is the minimum range that they're going to need to go to the mainstream market. So 200 miles. By 2020, the EV industry will be able to build 200-mile EVs for $30,000. Now, why is this important? Because the median sticker price for a new car in America is $31,000. So at that point, essentially, half the market for gasoline and diesel vehicles is gone. Because that's like digital cameras coming down to the same price as film cameras. vehicles. By around about 2022 or 3, essentially EVs with 320-kilometer range will cost $22,000, which is the low end of the market. So even the low end will be disrupted by about 2022, 2023. And even if this 16% cost curve doesn't hold, and it takes 2, 3, 4 more years, by about 2025, 2026, every single new car, every single new vehicle will be electric. By 2025, 2026, that's only 10 years away because of the exponential cost improvement in electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are computers on wheels. So companies, existing companies, are having to compete with Silicon Valley, with technology cost curves that essentially did not exist up until recently. And if you look at even what existing conventional car companies are saying, GM announced a $30,000 EV with 320-kilometer range by 2017. And that is ahead of my curve. Now, even if they're late by a couple of years, they're still going to be ahead of my curve. Okay? Now, they're not building this. LG is building this. LG has the battery factory. LG Electronics is building much of the electronics and so on and so forth. We're talking about a potential $30,000 EV by 2017. That's next year. Okay? So the industry is going really quickly down the cost curve. So the disruption may actually happen much more quickly than I anticipated. But, as they say, but wait, there's more. Foxconn has announced that they're investing about $1 billion to get into the electric vehicle market. Foxconn is the company that makes your iPads and iPhones. Why would a computer company get into the EV business? Because EVs are computers on wheels, right? If you only have 18, 20, 30 moving parts, it's a very easy thing to do. It's basically a computer on wheels. So it's usually the outsiders who disrupt companies in the inside. So the companies that disrupt the car industry are not going to be the insiders, they're going to be the outsiders. A few will be able to survive and compete, but by and large, these disruptions are coming from the outside. Tesla, Foxconn, Apple, and so on and so forth. Now, which means, by the way, let me go back to this in case that by 2025, did I say that, or 2026, all new vehicles will be electric. Now, 72%, 71% of all petroleum goes into transportation. Of that, 9% of the total goes into aviation and shipping and so on. 62% of all petroleum in the world goes into transportation. Essentially, by 2025 to 2030 sometime, oil is going to be obsolete. Gone. Obsolete. Okay, it's going to stay in the ground. And it doesn't matter what governments do. This is a technology disruption. Does that make sense? Boom. Disruption. Now, let me talk about the other disruption. Another disruption. So, solar PV has improved since 1970 by about 200 times. So since 1970, it's come down from $100 a watt to about 50 cents a watt. Actually, it's more like 45 cents, but it looks good like this. It's about 200x. 200x. At the same time, the solar PV install base has gone up since 2000 by about 132 times. Essentially, it has doubled every 2 years since 2000, actually since 1990. Double every 2 years. That's a 42% compound annual growth rate. Now, it's about 1% of the market now, so for the whole energy market. 1%. And that's why folks go like, oh, it's just 1%. How long before it actually has the penetration to make any difference? Well, let's do the numbers. It's doubling every 2 years, and it has for a long time. It's 1%. How many more doublings will solar need before it's 100% of the world's energy? And it's now at 1%. 2%, 4%, 8%, 16%, 32%, 64% disruption, right? So it's going to need 7 more doublings. That's 14 years, assuming it can keep growing at this rate. Now, a lot of people have underestimated this exponential growth, right? So let's look at some of the numbers. Can it be really solar 100% of all energy by 2030? Now, let me compare with conventional energies. Oil, coal, NOx, natural gas, all of them, even at today's quote-unquote low prices, have gone up anywhere from 6 to 16 times since 1970. All of them. This is because extraction economics is different from technology economics. Solar is a technology. We know that it's going to keep going down. So when you put this together, since 1970, solar has improved cost basis by about 1,100 relative to coal and 3,100 relative to oil. 3,100 times improvement relative to oil, even at today's quote-unquote low prices. So, we know that solar is going to go down by another 50, 60% over the next 5 years. That 3,000 is going to be 6,000. At which point do oil companies lose sleep? At 3,000, 5,000, 6,000? Because it's going to keep going down that curve, right? 12,000? I'll tell you when. Now, let me talk about business model innovation because, like I said, business models are also disruptive. And in the United States, unlike in much of the rest of the world, what enabled the solar market to grow exponentially was not just the technology cost curve, but a new business model. Essentially, third-party finance. Zero money down, and you pay the for residential and commercial over 14 to 20 years. So essentially, when you give homeowners and people like Walmart and IKEA and so on zero money down and they pay over many years, the uptake, as you see the curve, what's called third-party finance, has gone literally through the roof, pun intended, whereas the cash deals have essentially stayed even. So business model innovation, if you see Colorado, the same thing. It went up from 0 to about 70-80% of the market because it was financed with this new financial innovation, zero money down. Now, we have a lot of ways to do business model innovation in solar and also in clean energy, right? And the last two, 7 and 8, and I'm talking about the United States, today, the real estate investment trusts, you can raise money to do an asphalt roof, but you cannot raise money to do a solar roof, which, there you go, policy, right? But when and if, assuming that that's approved for solar, that's $400 billion that are going to open up for solar in residential and commercial. And same thing with master limited partnerships. So let's go back to the cost basis. I mean, the mantra in the industry for decades has been grid parity. Now, grid parity is important, but it's not the point of no return. I'll tell you what the point of no return is going to be. Grid parity is important, and according to Deutsche Bank, 80% of global markets, in 80% of global markets, solar will be at or below grid parity by 2017. That's only a year and a half away. Maybe if they're wrong by a year or two, whatever. I mean, 80% of the world market, solar will be at or below grid parity. And that's important. But let me tell you what's going to be more important than that. So I said by 2020, solar will be about 6,000, will have improved by about 6,000 times relative to oil, 6,000 times relative to natural gas, and so on and so forth, right? But because of that, the acceleration of the market may actually accelerate more than the 42% a year, because it's getting to the point where it's cheaper than what the retail electricity companies are selling us. And the other point to remember, and I want to remind you of this, solar, electric vehicles are technologies. And technologies are different in terms of adoption. They hit a critical point, and after that, they actually accelerate as an S-curve. They hit 80% of the market very, very quickly, and then they pause a little bit to before they reach 100%. But this acceleration, this S-curve acceleration, will happen, in my opinion, here. And I had to invent a new term for that, and the new term is God parity. Now, what is God parity? That's essentially when the cost of rooftop solar, unsubsidized rooftop solar, whether it's in a home, in a factory, on a Walmart, on an IKEA, is going to fall below the cost of transmission. So when the cost of rooftop solar falls below the unsubsidized, falls below the cost of transmission, even if you can generate in the central power stations at zero, once you add the cost of transmission, whether it's 7 cents or 10 cents or 12 cents, it cannot, mathematically, it cannot compete with rooftop solar. This is going to happen essentially in every market around the world, every large market over the next 5 years. It's already happening in Australia that rooftop solar, unsubsidized, is hitting the point where it's below the cost of transmission. So even if, again, if you generate at zero, even if you bring the God particle from CERN and generate at zero, you can do fusion, you do whatever you want at zero, which is not possible. Once you add the cost of transmission, you cannot compete with rooftop solar. And essentially every market around the world will hit God parity by 2020. And at that point, it's going to be in everybody's selfish, best economic interest, not because they're green, but because of this green, to put up as much solar on as many rooftops as they possibly can. Because of this, because it'll be always cheaper, whether you're in Berlin with 900 hours of sunshine, in San Francisco with 1,600 hours, or in the Atacama Desert with 3,000 hours. For those hours, it'll always be cheaper than to generate with rooftop solar than with anything else that the utility can offer. And that's going to be the point of no return, because everybody, consumers, this is going to be consumer driven. And this is what a lot of folks, governments, and utilities don't get. This is going to be consumer driven, just like this was consumer driven. PV, solar PV is going to be consumer driven, and electric vehicles are going to be consumer driven. And governments essentially have two choices. They can help us accelerate this, or they can help or hurt by slowing it down. But these disruptions are going to happen because of these technology cost curves and business model innovation. So at this point, when we hit God parity, all forms of central generation will be obsolete, all of them. Anything that you start today, any power plant, fossil-based power plant, nuclear-based power on a central generation basis that you start today is already obsolete. It's already obsolete because we're going to hit God parity over the next 5 years and essentially and of course, because of this, the solar adoption curve will accelerate. But of course, we can't generate all power on a distributed basis, right? In the homes, most of it will be, but not all, especially in Nordic countries. But even in the US, I mean, a lot of us live in cities, and cities will probably not generate all solar within the cities. But look at the cost curve for utility scale solar. In the last year, in this 2015, solar in the US is coming in at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. 5 cents. Nothing can compete with 5 cents. Nothing. not the God particle, nothing can compete with 5 cents, period. And this is why both at the distributed level, because of God parity, and the utility scale level, solar is going to eat everything. Solar is going to eat nuclear, solar is going to eat gas, coal, it's going to eat everything. Saudi Arabia just announced 4.9 cents per kilowatt hours, unsubsidized. 4.9 cents unsubsidized. Now, why is Saudi Arabia investing in oil? Because they're burning oil, and in solar, because they're burning oil, right? And they can sell that oil in the market. And solar is already cheaper than burning oil, even in Saudi Arabia, even at their cost, right? And that's why they have said that they're investing $100 billion in solar. So, one last disruption. So, we've seen the disruption of car companies, oil, coal, nuclear, natural gas. What's missing? So let's look at even a bigger disruption, the autonomous vehicle disruption. And this is going to cut across a lot of things. Now, I assume that you've all seen some sort of video, but I'm going to show it anyway.
Right here in America, we're introducing the world's first truck with an AB license plate. The first autonomous truck on public roads ever, anywhere in the world.
Germany's Daimler rolled out the Inspiration Tuesday night. It has been granted a license for road use in the state of Nevada. The license allows the Inspiration to be tested on Nevada's freeways and highways. Nevada is one of 4 states and the District of Columbia that allow autonomous vehicle testing on public roads. A Daimler spokesperson said they opted for Nevada because they had strong and clear regulations requiring the road license. The Inspiration has technology that is similar to the self-driving Mercedes-Benz future truck 2025 2014. The Inspiration's highway pilot system allows a driver to release the control to the vehicle on highways, like a pilot putting a plane in autopilot.
This technology is already out. I mean, these trucks are already driving in Nevada highways without pilots, without drivers. And they're not the only ones doing this. Nissan has announced that by 2018, they will be releasing a fully autonomous vehicle. Fully autonomous. Google has been working on autonomous vehicle. I mean, basically, a number of companies. This is not new technology. This is technology that they've been working on for a long time. Tesla, every new Tesla that's coming out of the factory, according to them, is 90% autonomous. Now, you can't use all of this because of regulation, but basically every Model S and Model X is already. You can tell the car when you get to your, property, go park yourself, and when you call it, you say come back and play Beyonce when you're here. You can already do that. So the question is at what cost, right? I mean, how expensive is vehicle autonomy? And just to give you an idea, this is what an autonomous vehicle, self-driving car sees using a technology that's an essential technology for self-driving called LiDAR, laser and radar. So essentially, you emit 500,000 pulses of laser per second, which bounce back like a radar. Basically, you emit 100 meters to 100 meters, 360 degrees. So you create a full three-dimensional view, real-time view of the world. And you have a supercomputer on board that says, oh yeah, this is a moving dog, this is a tree, this is a car coming at 100 kilometers per hour. So in 2012, when Google announced the technology costs of its self-driving car, they said technology is $150,000, of which LiDAR was almost half, was $70,000. And of course, what did the experts say at that moment? This is not going to happen, right? This is not going to happen in my lifetime. So here's what actually ended up happening. By the following year, the next generation LiDAR was $10,000. $10,000. We're getting more into the more affordable space, right? By the end of last year, the CEO of a Silicon Valley company came to speak in my class at Stanford, and he said, "Yep, we're working on a $1,000 LiDAR." 1,000 in 3 years, from 70K to 1K, right? This is exponential improvement in technology for you. But wait, there's more, right? Because this company is not only making a $1,000 LiDAR, they have said that version 2, generation 2, which is going to be about this size, solid state, is going to be $250 in a couple of years. Generation 3, the size of a postage stamp, is going to be $90. $90, you'll be able to do LiDAR in your cell phone. I don't know what you're going to do with it. Maybe go to a party and do a LiDAR and laser show, but it's going to cost $90. So in about 7 years, LiDAR will have gone from $70,000 to $90, which is, less than many of us paid for for dinner last night. So what about the cost of supercomputing power? Because this generates a lot of data that we need to crunch in real time, right? And so let me give you an idea of how supercomputing power has evolved over the last just 15 years. This was the world's most powerful supercomputer in the year 2000. This was India National Labs, the world's first teraflops, 1 teraflops. That's 1 trillion floating point operations per second for the geeks in the crowd. And it cost $46 million to 64, and it was the size of a moon 15 years ago, 46 million. Today, you can buy 2 teraflops for $59. This is the CEO of NVIDIA showing the 2.3 teraflops GPU for $59. So it improved from 50 million to $50 a million times in about 50 years. So essentially the cost of self-driving, the incremental cost, will be like, I don't know, adding leather seats or something. I mean, it's not going to be that expensive. Okay, so will the markets actually want this? Who wants self-driving, right? We all love driving, right? So let me show you Cisco, a little company, did a study around the world, and this is what they found out. In Brazil, 95% of consumers said, we want it, and we want it now. Any Brazilians in the crowd? No? I mean, 95%. India, 86%. China, 70%. So even if this doesn't happen in Paris or San Francisco, it's going to happen in countries that are going to leave the rest of us because of, my guess, this, right? Anyone who's driven in Sao Paulo or Shenzhen or Bangalore knows how awful traffic is, and that's why these markets want self-driving cars. So cool. So we can do Facebook and Twitter, and we can do all those things while we not drive. That is very cool. So what? Where's the disruption? Business model innovation. That's where the disruption is. So it's the combination. And I'll give you 3 figures, and then I'll wrap it up. I said I don't own a car. That's my car. This is my car. Okay, for 7 years, I've been using things like car sharing, ride sharing, Uber, Lyft, Zipcar, taxis, public transportation, and so on, whatever works. This is called market research. 7 years. And by the way, I've done the numbers financially, and it's great. So just to give you one number, car sharing, a company called Zipcar, the number that they give is that for every 1 Zipcar, essentially this is the model of you rent it by the hour. So you're going to the supermarket, you rent it for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you shop, you come back home, and you bring it back. If you only want to use it 2 hours, then why have it for 24 hours, right? So Zipcar, each Zipcar replaces 14 other cars on the road. So there are 15 members per Zipcar. Imagine Zipcar using self-driving cars, right? How many cars would that take off the road? Now, let me give you another number. Uber. And I don't need to tell you much about Uber, except In San Francisco, half of Uber rides are carpooling. Half, which means this. If I'm going from point A to B, from my home to my work, and Uber tells me, oh, there's somebody else that we can pick up along the way, and if we do, you'll get charged 30% less or something like that. Do you want to pick up somebody else? That's carpooling. 50% of the market has said, yay. I mean, for 40% improvement in prices, of course, right? So the combination of car sharing and ride sharing and so on is very powerful. The last number I'll give you before concluding is this. Cars are our second largest capital expenditure. After homes, cars are our second largest expenditure. Owning a car costs in America $12,000 a year. 12,000 miles, $12,000, that's $1 per mile to own a car. And yet, we park it 96% of the time. Where's your car? Parked, right? 96% of the time. We only use it 4%. Now, show me an industry with 4% asset utilization, and I'll show you a disruption waiting to happen. And actually, that 4% is not totally right, because 40% of the time we're either looking for parking or we're stuck in a highway, right? So it's more like 2.5% to 2.8%. Now, let's put it all together. Self-driving technology with car sharing, what do you get? You get an Uber that it is working on its own self-driving car. Now imagine Ubers or Lyfts or the equivalent in each country going around 90% of the time instead of being parked 90% of the time. That's essentially the business model that's going to disrupt the transportation industry. Combine self-driving with car sharing, and what's going to happen is that the cost per mile for the same level of service, essentially, they'll take you from point A to point B at any time, whenever you want. You remember 80% of us who live in cities is going to be 10 times cheaper. So the cost per mile is going to go from $1 to about 10 cents, maybe. So essentially, most people say, you know what, I'm not going to own a car. When for 90% less, I can have the same level of service for 90% less. And that is the big disruption. And what's going to happen at that point, when basically most cars are going to go driving around instead of being parked, is that the number of cars that we're going to need is 80% less. So we're going to need 80% fewer cars than we need today to achieve the same level of service and 90% cost cutting, which means also parking. All of that parking space, 80-90% of parking, obsolete, gone, right? There's no need for parking in high real estate price areas in the downtowns, London or any city for that matter. 80% of parking, gone. So as a society, we should start thinking about what we want to do with all that space. So let me summarize the disruption of energy and transportation. It's 2015, and we're here. Everything that I've talked about, solar, electric vehicles, self-driving cars, energy storage, they're all at 1% of the market or less, right? And some people can't even see it. And some people who do see it say, yeah, it's 1% of the market, right? How quickly can it possibly go up to 20 or 50 or 100%? Well, like you see, the technology cost curve is going down exponentially. The business model innovation is starting already to disrupt energy and transportation. And it can go very, very quickly. So according to the numbers, the data that I have studied, and that I have some of which I've shown you, by 2030, all new energy will be generated by solar, secondary wind. Yeah, it's making some people in the energy industry cry when you hear that. All energy will be solar and wind. All vehicles will be electric and self-driving. And what that's going to do is it's going to essentially take oil, gas, in coal out of business. Nuclear is already obsolete, out of business, right? The architecture of energy is going to flip from central generation to fully distributed generation, including mobile generation. So cars are going to be also power plants on wheels, right? Not just computers on wheels, but they're going to be power plants on wheels. And this is going to happen over the next 10 to 15 years. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Thomas Ivan for that inspirational talk in the middle of the climate negotiations. I'd love to take one or two questions for our keynotes, but it's getting so close to here in our microphone that I appreciate to just say thank you very much for coming on. I'm sure one or two questions will be answered in the all outside before we go out into the Paris evening. So thank you very much for all who's coming. Thank you very much for everybody watching, and have a wonderful evening.